You prayed. You did everything right. You were sincere. You were desperate. You believed with everything you had, and nothing happened. The silence on the other end of that prayer didn't just hurt, it shook the foundation of everything you thought you understood about God, about faith, about yourself. And then someone told you that maybe you didn't pray correctly, or you didn't have enough faith, or God was testing you, or there was hidden sin in your life blocking the answer. I want you to hear this clearly. Those explanations are not just incomplete. In many cases, they are spiritually abusive. And the truth about why prayers go unanswered is so much deeper, so much more loving, and so much more intelligent than any of those answers, that it will change how you relate to the divine for the rest of your life. The mystical traditions of every culture make a distinction that mainstream religion has almost entirely lost: the difference between petitionary prayer and transformational prayer. Petitionary prayer is the prayer of the ego. It says, God, I know what I need. I've assessed the situation. Here is the outcome I require. Please make reality conform to my specifications. This isn't wrong. It's deeply human. But it operates on the assumption that you have a clearer view of what serves your soul's evolution than the intelligence that created the universe. Transformational prayer, which is what the great mystics practiced, begins from a completely different premise. It says, something in me already knows what this situation requires. My prayer is not to change what I is, but to align my awareness with the deeper wisdom that is already at work. The Sufi master Rumi wrote, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. That field is the answer, and you can't get there while you're shouting your requirements at the sky. The Gospel of Mark, one of the oldest gospel texts, contains a line about prayer that most modern Christians have been trained to read in a specific way. Jesus says, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. The Western Church reads this as a formula for manifestation, but in the original Aramaic context, the word translated as believe is closer to embody. It means become the version of yourself for whom this is already true. Stop praying at God and start praying from the consciousness of alignment with God. The most terrifying prayer experience, the one that breaks more faith than any tragedy, is not the prayer that gets a no. It's the prayer that gets silence. Here is what the contemplative traditions unanimously teach about divine silence, and it is the most counterintuitive thing you will hear today. The silence is the most advanced form of spiritual teaching. Saint John of the Cross, the 16th century Spanish mystic, called this the dark night of the soul. He described it as the experience of divine withdrawal, not because God had left, but because the soul was being weaned off its dependency on emotional and sensory confirmation of divine presence. The soul that requires constant emotional confirmation of God's existence never develops the depth of trust that comes from continuing to choose love and integrity in the silence. Mother Teresa, and this is documented in her private letters that the Catholic Church tried to suppress, experienced nearly 50 years of complete spiritual darkness. No consolation, no felt presence of God. She wrote, the silence in the emptiness is so great that I look and do not see, listen and do not hear. And yet she continued, not because she felt God, but because she had moved beyond feeling into a more fundamental form of knowing. The Buddhist concept of sunyata, emptiness, teaches that the space where God seems absent is actually the space where the constructed self dissolves enough for genuine encounter to become possible. The Zen tradition calls the state of not knowing the highest spiritual attainment. The silence isn't God's absence. The silence is God removing all the static so that something deeper than thought can finally transmit. Now let's talk about what's actually happening when prayer seems blocked. Not because of your unworthiness, but because of physics, spiritual physics. Quantum coherence, the phenomenon by which quantum particles maintain synchronized states across distance, provides what may be the best scientific metaphor for why prayer works and why it sometimes doesn't. Prayer from a quantum perspective is an act of coherence. It's the alignment of your vibrational state with the frequency of what you're calling in. When you pray from fear, from scarcity, from desperation, You are broadcasting a frequency that is fundamentally incoherent with the state of abundance, healing, or peace you're asking for. The signal is scrambled at the source. This isn't punishment, it's physics. The Kabbalistic tradition calls this the principle of Zimsum, divine contraction. God contracts to create space for human reality to exist. But that contraction means that the channel between human consciousness and divine response requires active alignment to function. The channel doesn't open automatically. It opens when your internal state matches the frequency of divine reality. This is why every major mystical tradition prescribes silence, stillness, and inner clearing before prayer, not after. Before. You don't pray your way into alignment, you align your way into prayer that can actually land. Meditation isn't preparation for the real spiritual work. It is the real spiritual work. Prayer in the mystical framework is the natural overflow of a consciousness that has become still enough to remember what it is. There is one category of prayer that every mystical tradition says the divine never ignores. Not because God plays favorites, but because of what this prayer is. The prayer for truth. The prayer that says, show me what I cannot see. Show me where I am lying to myself. Show me what is really happening here beneath the story I've been telling. Show me who I actually am beyond the identity I've constructed. This prayer terrifies most people because the divine takes it seriously, and the answer is rarely comfortable. When you ask to see clearly, you will see clearly, including the parts of your own behavior, the patterns, the wounds, the ego structures that have been creating the very circumstances you've been praying to escape. This is not punishment. This is divine cooperation with your highest intention. You asked for healing. The divine shows you the infection. You asked for love. The divine reveals the walls you built against it. The mystics called this the purgative way, the first stage of the divine journey in which everything that is not true is burned away. It is the most uncomfortable stage and the most sacred. And it is the stage that most people, when it comes, mistake for spiritual abandonment rather than spiritual acceleration. Your unanswered prayers are not evidence of divine indifference. They are evidence of divine intelligence operating at a level your current consciousness cannot yet perceive. The most powerful prayer you can offer tonight is not a list of what you need. It's the simple, terrifying, transformational act of saying, I'm done performing my spirituality. I'm done negotiating with the divine as though it owed me something. I choose to trust the intelligence of the process even when I cannot see the process. I choose to become the kind of vessel that divine response can actually flow through. That prayer changes everything. And unlike every other prayer you've ever prayed, this one you can answer yourself.